Start streaming. Shows me live. Would you look at that? Would you look at that? Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Just what we like to see. Right. Right. That looks correct to me. Can go live. Lovely. Here we are. So, what are we working on? Working on implementing all the necessary checks and balances for training requests. Yes. Also, look at me. Look at me here, being a professional and light team. Crazy, is it? There we go. Right, so that should be mostly legible on screen. First of all, the first thing we do here, so is visiting is actually not something we need. That's phenomenally useful. I don't need is visiting anywhere. That can just get completely removed. It's not a field. We can compute that. All right, I can go public function is visiting, returns a bool, and what that should do is query. What I can query is let it open on a window here. Right. Show it to you. So you should be able to. Oh. There you go. If you query that, where you have a CID in the URL, then you get all this information about that person, including the subdivision, the Belux. That's useful. So if I'm going to quickly document that with the to-do comment. Doesn't need to return comment. That's bullshit. We all know it returns a boolean. Queries https api.vatsim.net/api/ratings/cid. Ending slash is very important, otherwise it'll give you a redirect and likes doing redirects. Compares the subdivision field to Belux. That's how you know somebody is visiting. Alright, needs to be implemented, but that's all we really need. Good. So that's the position validated. The CID, we're not actually going to check. Why are we not going to check? We're going to do something else with it. We're going to say user is user. Find request get the data array, data CID. And there are two possible scenarios following this. First scenario is bloody simple, actually. Maybe the user exists. Maybe they don't. Right? That's why we do this query. I'm also going to have public function user the bool, and that's just a little helper function. Return user find this CID. Why is it doing weird shit? This CID. It isn't equal to null. That's the same returns, which is that simple. So, if the user exists, right? So if our user exists, then we have to do some extra. If the user does not exist, right? Then only then on the fields about availability, user does not exist, availability, email, name, about self are required. Right? From request and request or abort things. If the user does not exist, right? If not, if is set data specifically the name abort with a 400 error. Name is required for new users. Well, I should probably put that in braces. Return null. That return null shouldn't actually be necessary. Make return type nullable. Can I go ahead and throw Discord, what the fuck are you doing? A bad request. It can in fact a bad request exception, so I can throw a new bad request exception that says name is required users. There we go. So now we have fixed the fact that theory we're not allowed to like audio is all fucked up. Good. That fixes the fact that we need a return value or we need to throw something. Right? If I just use the abort function, that achieves the same, but both the ID and PHP will be like, hey, you didn't actually return anything, which is perfectly sensible. And that. Right, so if the user is null, check if the name exists. If not is set data. So what else do we need? Availability. Now, I'm going to quickly refactor some things out already. I'm already going to be refactoring. I see a mistake that I've made here. If user is null and set. Why is this? Well, because things like the availability are nullable, right? So if user is null, we need to user is null and is set data availability or, so either the user is null and availability is not present, or empty user availability user. That should make this ability. Currently, I haven't created the. I have not created the ID helper situation, but that's fine. So if the availability is empty, and oh no, we can refactor that again. Right. So if availability is empty, and one of the following conditions: user is null, or empty user availability. Then what we need to do what we need to do is once again throw new bad request exception. Availability is required user. Ta-da! Right, so I imagine most of the couple of following checks are going to follow a similar pattern. If we don't have about self, and either the user is null or empty user about self, then once again throw a new bad request exception is required for user. Right, so what else do we have here in terms of useful stuff? Name, availability, about self, and email. If user is null, then and not is set data email. I am lazy. Email is required. We have handled name, email, availability, and about self. So name, email, availability. So we've handled this. The position we've also handled right here, defaulting to Brussels ground, and the CID we know is handled. That's lovely. So now we know everything is fine and dandy. What do we need to do now? Well, I think it's actually what we need to do now is just create an object. Return. Later. I don't have. I'll look it up later. Yeah, I was sure I had the Laravel ID helper set up, but apparently it does not. Pointless otherwise. Right, so now I need to do is return a new self. And what does self have? Data CID. quickly look in here because I have other things like that. Yep, whatever. Int val. What else do we need? Tell me, sir. The control position. All right. Data position. Search up. Name. Str data name. Now, next up, availability, str data availability. Here to have research. And then we need about self and email. Oh. Self of all email. Right, and now we're quickly going to go ahead and now I can just do like there we go, and that's refactored. Looks good. Looks perfectly good. Is visiting, we can deal with that later. Is it actually important to have it implemented on here? It is not. It is not at all implemented. User exists is a thing that happens. Function find or create user. Definitely going to return a user model. Right. This user find or new this CID, and then we're going to have an array of the columns that we want to set. Right. First of all is a name that's going to be pointing to this name. We have the email that's pointing to this email. Then we have the availability that's pointing to this availability. And then we have the about self that's pointing to this about self. Right. Now I need to introduce another check. If empty not empty this availability, correctly, I do think that's going to fail in a bunch of ways, but I'll deal with that slightly later. If empty this availability, then quite simple. If it isn't empty and user availability is not equal to this availability, user availability is user this availability. Now we're going to do very much the same situation. availability slash about self slash G. There we go. User save return user. There we go. That's all we really need to know for this, which is delightful. The question is, does this work? And I have my questions about this. I certainly do. Now, one thing I want to know right quick is if I can easily test this. Right? Form request. Form request should have a constructor, right? Implements, validates when resolved, extends request. That's okay. Get validator instance, blah blah, validation data. Get a validated input container for the validated input. Okay. Wild. Nope. Okay, so this does not allow for creation. Can't I show my tabs? Please, I would love to see my tabs. Show my tabs. Show tabs. Well, whatever. You are editing a file which is ignored. Yeah, that's alright. I'm not actually editing it, I'm just scrolling through it. Request, blah blah blah. Extend Symfony request. What a time to be alive. Okay. And Symfony request, what do you do? I'm going to quickly exit presentation. Oh gosh, nope, not that. I need to exit presentation mode because I can not see my tabs otherwise. Symfony requests. Yep, this is the Symfony request. Right, does that shit have a constructor? It does not. Okay, and it has body parameters, an input bag. Okay, so you can do requests. Yet. Okay. Does this shit extend something? It does not. That is crazy. Okay. We can make a test for it, can't we? Okay, let's make a test. Oh, no, no, don't you do that. Nasty, nasty. Right. Sale, artisan, pest, test. And that's going to be the training request data test. That can perfectly well be a unit test. Can it be a unit test? Can it be a unit test? It could be. It could be. Except for one very bloody important caveat, namely this little line here. I don't think I can fake that. I don't think I can fake that. Quickly going to Google it, but I'm not going to show you me Googling it. For the simple reason that it might show slightly too much. There is a lot open in my browser. Okay, so we use unit tests then. That's alright. feature test. That is completely all right by me. We go training request dot test. There we go. Currently validates. First of all, request is new training request store training request. Right, and request, what was it again? Request is an input bag called request. Okay, so if we go request, add. Now this is when we need to do something, right? Random int in between. Something like that for the CID. It's going to be CID pointing to that. Email. Yeah, one of the things that I'm wondering about is in case you are in one of these cases where something like availability is not required. What is it going to be then? Right? It doesn't have availability in there. It doesn't have email in there because that's not required. What if it is? If you use a CID of a random existing user, I'm going to first create a user. User is user factory create. Right, so that's our user. I'm going to quickly have to annotate the fact that it's a user because IntelliJ is done. Right, and we're going to have to go here just to user CID. Right, now I don't need to provide position, we know all of that. Actually, the only thing that I need to provide in any situation, well, I do need to provide position. It's not actually, there we go, not actually required. Fun fact, the only thing that's actually required is the CID. I'll just only provide a CID for now, right? Then, I'm going to go ahead and data is training request data from request or abort request. Oh gosh, don't do that. What happens if you have caps lock on? I can just do only that. Right? I think this makes sense to literally everybody involved. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead here and sail test. I'm going to run pest, and ta-da! It fails. No such table user. Yeah, why does that happen? Well, that happens for a bloody simple reason actually. If I quickly go into here into the tests section, the reason is so simple. This is not a good idea, not a good example. Also not a good example. Oh, there we go. This is a go. We need to add this little line up to the top. Otherwise, it doesn't really know that it needs to go ahead and it needs to use a database for this. So let's go back in and run the test. Okay, it fails. Call to member function validated or null. That is wild, isn't it? That is absolutely wild. Right, is that because that shit doesn't have a validator? Right. That does make me slightly curious, because I can't easily create that request. I want to just create that request. It doesn't matter to me. It's, in my opinion, it's just all too silly. It's all too silly. Yeah, because we're requesting what's happening here is actually dead simple. I'll show you. We are in sort training request, not one, data thing, requesting the validated data. Right, that's what we're doing. But yeah, you know what? I'm actually going to change this. I'm going to change it to the documentation as well. Takes a validated an array of validated input from a store training. Store training request tests. There we go. Or what I could also do is I could say or. That's a store training request. And then I can do if data instance of store training request data is data validated. And now data is an array. Right? We can do that. And then I don't need to create that. Right? I don't need to create a request at all. What I can just do is I could just go CID user CID. There we go. Easier testing. Easier test. That's what we want. Let's run the test. Let's run the test. Okay, it fails. Availability is required for this user. Why is that so? Well, because availability isn't set. Right? It's not. That's okay. We can fix that. Why is that not set? That's because in my user factory, you can see it doesn't actually define availability or about self. We're going to go availability. I'm going to just say vACC. And then about self. I'll make this something simple, something I don't need to. Y'all are probably still on the shell screen, but it doesn't really matter. You'll see in a second. About self is required for this. Now that's weird, isn't it? What not? That's really weird. So going to the user, you guys here as well. So properties are already defined, blah, 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 blah. About self actually uses the underscore. That's just me being silly here. Of course, it's not properly capitalized. That's okay. We can deal with that. I don't know what the fuck you're seeing right now. Probably my shell. Undefined array key name. Yep. There you have it. See? That's what I was wondering about. What I was afraid wrong. And it is objectively wrong, what I'm doing there. It is just objectively wrong. Right, we're never setting if it's not set, but the user has an availability, so in the else case, what can we assume, right? We can assume that it's not set, right? And either the user doesn't exist, we have a problem, or the user does not have an availability. For sure, it's not set in our array. For sure. Those are two cases that I need to handle right now. What do I do? Well, I'll probably need to check. I'll just go data availability is equal to is null. User, if it is null, then it's just going to be an empty string, else it's going to be equal to user availability. Oh, it now knows shit about this. Wonderful. Here, s availability slash about self. Okay. There we go. And now if I go into my test, run it, see, undefined array key name. Yep. Also makes sense, right? It makes perfect sense. If the user is null and it isn't set, else, this means that the user isn't null. Either it's set or the user isn't null. Data name is user name. There you go. That's also implemented. And I can go ahead and test it. They'll test, blah, blah. This test did not perform any assertions. Well, I mostly wanted to assert that it didn't crash. Right. Assert not null data. That's mostly just what we're testing here. That exists and that's somewhat works. Wonderful. This user exists function doesn't really matter. Doesn't matter. It's wonderful. And this control I now have to do is bloody simple. Bloody simple. Data is training request data from request to report. Request. Done. Right? Now, something I need to check. If user is allowed to create for others, that's a policy check. We have not yet implemented policies yet. Right? That's okay. So now we go user is data, why not create user? Done. Easy. Now We go for training request, which is a thing that we have. Create training requests table. Here we go. It just consists of user CID. Right. Actually, I'm going to implement something on. This is the function is visiting that we're going to implement here, right? api.vatsim.net/API/ ratings/ plus another slash, get all of that. JSON, you want the JSON, and we specifically want the subdivision, and we want and of course this is PHP and I'm a noob. I need a dot. I need to be an strval like this, and you need to be a dot as well. Wonderful. Not to cast. Why not? There we go. That's done. I'm going to document it. Where is the VATSIM API? Let's see. That means we need to treat it like a network request and do it properly, right? This is important. Anyway, what I need to do is I need to go ahead and go training request is new training request. Associate that with the user. Request position is going to be data position. And let me do something else. We're going to go a try block. The try block is very simply going to do if user is visiting. In request priority is minus one. Catch E catch any exception, just continue. So in theory, it is possible for a visiting controller. Oh gosh, you've been sitting on the wrong screen the entire time. So what I just did a check for if the user is visiting, which makes an HTTP request. By writing a try block to deal with network issues. In case it ever fails because of network issues, because of whatever, then this is just going to continue and not change the priority. Here, if a visiting controller comes in and has had issues, server has network issues, or the API, VATSIM API server has issues, then a priority will not be applied properly. We think this is unacceptable. I'll actually document it better. It's to apply it. There you go. If it fails for whatever reason, don't even worry. Care. Log. Log the info. While creating. We're going to have some context, namely the user. That's user. You just log it, we move on. Then we just training request, save, return response JSON request. That's all we care about. Done, done and dusted. Now we get the very exciting job of having to write documentation for it correctly. I'm going to be explicitly documenting it badly. That is what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to explicitly... It is telling me that the audio bitrate is 0. Restart my stream. That's weird. Do I have audio on my stream? Yeah, I've had audio on there the entire time. I don't know what the issue was. Weird. Really, really weird. Yeah, I'll just quickly go ahead and put it in science technology, why not? Or actually English language stream. Right. Good, I fixed my stream. Hooray. I know I'm going to go ahead and explicitly document it badly. Why? Well, tags is going to be training. Why is this a bad documentation? This is a bad documentation for the simple case that absolutely nobody, this will not generate. I'll actually show you if I go test again. Safe side. If I go sale artisan L5 swagger generate, it'll crash out on me and it'll complain because it needs at least one response. That's a way for me to remember that I need to go ahead and implement that. So creation of request. Pass. Push that over. Oh. I push to multiple locations at a time. But right now the one push is enough. Alright. Time to end the stream here. It has been a seriously long stream already. Toodaloo.